what comes out. And if my tired old eyes aren't pulling a gypsy, we have 4 guys coming in with a come on, the Ernie Felice Quartet.
Hello and welcome to Tales of Myth and Mayhem. My name is Michelle. If you can't hear anyone or me, please let us know in the chat. I believe everything is set up as it should be. I'm definitely coming through, I've just confirmed that. Welcome to our little game of Fallout we're going to play. Over the last few weeks I've been reading the rule book as much as possible. This is my first time running a game. This is the first time playing this game for all of our players. Except Lavaita, who played a one-shot on here a few weeks ago. And yeah, we're just going to play a little game of Fallout for you, all of you lovely people. So joining us today, we have Jade. No. Ah.
I don't know.
Over here we have Catherine. Say hi, Catherine.
Hello.
Down there we have Lavaita. Say hi, Lavaita.
Hello.
And down here we have Tim. Say hello, Tim. Oh,
hello.
Tim, we can't hear you.
Unmute.
Oh,
yeah,
there we go.
I unmuted.
And over there we should have Jordan, but Jordan has not arrived as yet. He may join us in the middle of this. Say hi, Jordan. Oh, you can't. You're not here. All right. So, assuming everyone can be heard, thank you, Three-Eyed Cat. We can all be heard. Let's jump into the game that we have all gathered here to play. So, okay, there's my notes. Ooh. Okay. There might be little moments like that where I work things out because this is all a bit new to me. So, let's begin. War. War never changes. In our universe, after World War II, humanity invented the microchip, and this technology is the reason we are all able to be here tonight on Twitch watching us play this game. In the universe of this story, this never happened. Technology went down a different path. The path of cathode ray tube television still being utilised well into the 21st century, of computers not becoming smaller, but becoming larger. Robots in every middle-class home in America, and this simple divergence resulted in a very different history. The Vietnam War never happened. The Cold War never happened as it did in our universe. Neither Gulf Wars, the Russia-Ukraine War, the Israel-Palestine War, none of these happened in the universe of this story. But no matter what universe you happen to be standing in, war never changes. A world built on cathode ray tube technologies, nuclear-powered cars and robots being as commonplace in this world as iPhones are on ours, could never last. And in 2077, after a decade of global tussling over the last known resources on Earth, the spoils of war became its weapons. Nobody knows who launched the first nuclear warhead, but within hours, the planet was engulfed in nuclear fire, extinguishing most life on Earth. Those in America who had the means survived by living in great underground vaults, courtesy of the Vault-Tec Corporation. Those who had the money believed they could live out the bombs in comfort. Many were gravely mistaken, as Vault-Tec's real goal was to use their customers as lab rats. Each vault was an experiment. Some were fairly minor, like Vault 43, which sought to find out what would happen if the residents did not have any access to toilet paper. Others were more obscene, like Vault 75, which subjected its residents to inhumane genetic experimentation, or Vault 97, where residents were forced to compete in knowledge competitions, and for those who did not win their competitions, they lost their lives. For those outside the vaults who survived, some would respond to the radiation that permeated the wasteland and change. Their skin would darken, break apart. These people became ghouls. Their lifespans extended, and looking pretty gosh darn ugly. Over the centuries after the bomb fell, many other new forms of life became into being, one of the most impactful being the super mutants, who were formerly regular human beings. After being exposed to the forced evolutionary virus, or the FEV, they would become huge hulking beasts. Many super mutants would become openly hostile to all forms of life, but many sought to become part of the new world. In 2282, over 200 years after the bombs fell, outside Vault 95, near what used to be Boston, in the Commonwealth wasteland, a super mutant, an initiate in the Brotherhood of Steel, a Mr. Handy robot with the personality of a long-forgotten movie star, and a former Vault Dweller met a dying Vault Dweller called Micah from Vault 97. She made them promise her that they would seek out the Garden of Eden creation kit and lead her people to the Promised Land. The mutant, the Vault Dweller, and the Brotherhood of Steel initiate all agreed to help. They learned that the Garden of Eden creation kit, or GEC, had the power to terraform the wasteland into soil that could grow crops. It could create technology that could establish a town or a city, somewhere peaceful, somewhere safe. They also learned that many different people and factions in the wasteland were also hunting for the same thing. War never fucking changes, people. It never changes. Over the next 9 months, this group would travel all over the Commonwealth wasteland. During that time, they would rescue mutants who were being hunted by the Brotherhood of Steel. They would rescue Vault Dwellers under the thumb of a sadistic overseer and his cronies. And they would rescue ghouls from a sadistic scientist who sought to give eternal life to all of humanity at the cost of committing genocide against ghouls and mutants. They fought against the Sisterhood of Pain, they fought the Brotherhood of Steel, and in the end, this small group and all the people they rescued were victorious. They had secured the GEC. But this came at a cost. This now very large group of over 250 humans, mutants and ghouls had created a lot of enemies, and once they secured the GEC, they decided to flee the Commonwealth. They headed south of the Commonwealth, seeking out the Promised Land, and in time, they found it. A location protected by hills and the landscape, with no easy paths, and not depicted on any maps. They found a place to unleash the GEC and make their home. In 2283, this group founded Edinburgh. I want the transition to be a lot smoother than this. There we go. Edinburgh. This township was hidden from the world, and those inside could relax, knowing that those who actively hunted them could never find them. But war, it never fucking changes, as the residents of Edinburgh will learn yet again in time. So I'm just going to share the town map with everyone. There we go. You should be able to see the map of the town on Roll20 players, as the people watching should be able to see. That is where you have been living for the last 3 months. The first month was mostly construction, but for the last 2 months, you've been living and working in the town, doing whatever you do, and things have sort of started to become a bit routine. At first, everything was exciting, you're trying to work out how things were working and everything else. Now, just another day in Edinburgh. So today is the 22nd of May, in 2283. Don't worry too much. I'm not going to make date be a big thing in this. I'm just setting the scene. So, you don't have to remember the exact date or anything. That's probably not going to come up that much. But it has been almost a year to the day since the original group met outside that vault and promised Micah, the dying Vault Dweller, that they would find the GEC. It's been about 3 months since Edinburgh was established, and the residents have set into a routine. In the south of the town, super mutants work on the farm, growing the crops. On the west side, Edinburgh's children are given lessons at the school. On the north end, those who volunteered to maintain security are walking along the 3-story high walls that are all around the town, looking for threats, whilst to the northwest, the low hum that comes from the utilities building signals that Edinburgh's power station is ensuring everything is working okay. To the south of the utilities building, there are a series of buildings that look identical. Flat roofs, rectangular windows, beige walls reconstituted from sand and whatever scrap steel they could find. These kinds of buildings are spread all the way throughout Edinburgh and are where most residents live. Inside one of these lives 2 former Vault Dwellers. Harry Giles, a former instructor from Vault 97, who now teaches Edinburgh's young people, and Augusta Byron, a former resident of Vault 75 who now sits on Edinburgh's council as a science counsellor. Lavaita, would you please describe your character?
My character is quite sort of ordinary looking and had a very difficult time in Vault 75. where she grew up and eventually had to sort of leave when she discovered what was happening there. She There's a very long and complicated story, but she figured out what was happening and left with a group of other young people who were in the vault. They had to murder all the overseers and staff at the vault in order to get out. And then over the next few months, pretty much all of them either left or died in the radioactive wasteland. And she was kind of eking out a living just finding parts and trying to build some stuff and keep equipment running in the wastelands until meeting up with a larger group and starting to have the adventures you just described.
Sorry, was muted then. Okay, so Augusta, you've been up for a few hours. You've had your breakfast, sort of trying to work out what your day is going to look like. But you haven't got much planned beyond working on a Mr. Handy you found 3 months ago while originally breaking ground on what would become Edinburgh. You were sat in your bedroom with the Mr. Handy strewn across your desk. What would you like to do?
I'm taking the Mr. Handy apart very slowly and looking at all the different bits that make it up, trying to figure out what's going on with this and how it works, because I'm really interested in constructing like some kind of AI system that can help run the city like Edinburgh.
Okay. Okay, so... Okay. As you pull it apart, I'd like you to do a skill check. Intelligence is science. I'm not going to tell you what the difficulty is for now. Ooh, okay. You've got 3 successes from that roll, so that means you only needed the 1, so you've now added 2 more to the player action point pool. So now your player action points are at 6. Action points, for people who are watching and don't necessarily know, are little points that the players can use to give them bonuses and extra rerolls and stuff in a variety of different places. So the more that the characters, the players can get, the better. But they can only have a maximum of 6, which they have just hit. So, you know, might want to think about using action points wherever you can, players. So, yeah. Let me go back to reading from my notes. So... So you pull out some of the boards inside the Mr. Handy and you expect to see the usual things. Glass tubes with copper wires inside, capacitors the size of a human fist. Microchip technology was never invented in the Fallout universe, as I said before. So you were looking for... So you expected to pull out parts that to us in our world would look like the insides of a CRT television. This one does not have these contents. You don't understand what it is you are looking at. There are these tiny little black squares all over the place, and what appears to be loads of, like, a kind of metal linking them together that you've not really seen before and you don't really understand. But suddenly, a part of the Mr. Handy turns back on, and it says 648D4 Bacon Protocol active, warning, path not recognized, and the Mr. Handy powers down again. Something in that message feels familiar to you. But before you can fully interrogate that feeling, the door opens from behind you and Harry stumbles in. Harry is about mid-40s, you know, dark hair but greying. It's clear that he's been drinking. The first thing he says to you is, what are you doing?
Just doing the usual stuff and breaking apart things and looking at what's inside. This thing doesn't look like any of the other Mr. Handys we've ever found.
He walks over and plonks himself and sort of leans over behind you. In his right hand, he's got a bottle of gut rust whiskey. No idea where he got it from, and he's staring at it and just says, "All right, that's whatever." He stumbles away from you and sort of face plants onto his bed and immediately starts crying.
I want to go and help him, but I don't want to just leave all this open. So I'll sort of close it up a bit and make it kind of safe, because those things do run on like a nuclear battery, basically. And then I'll go over and like check out that he's okay and ask him what's happening.
So he's crying and he's just saying, "How do you do it?"
What? Just a screwdriver. You just take it apart, take the screws out. It's very easy.
No, how do you live with it?
Oh, the vault stuff.
Of course, it's the fucking vault stuff. It's always the vault stuff.
It's been there my whole life. I can't like just ignore all of that. So I just put it in a little box and sit on the lid. That's the healthy way.
I've been trying. You know, I go and I teach the kids what I can. Try to use the skills that I learned from the vault from 97 as best I could, but
I couldn't do what you do. I don't. Mixing with kids is just too much. It's too. It reminds me too much of all the stuff that happened at Vault 75.
he rolls over and lifts up his hand, which has still got the bottle of rot gut in it. Well, you know what I recommend? Hands you the bottle of rot gut.
I can't. It doesn't help. It's another thing to sit on top of the box, you know?
He grabs it back. Fine, more for me. He
Fine.
drinks it and drinks more, but then eventually passes out, spilling rot gut all over your bed and all over your floor.
Damn it, not again.
Suddenly, there's a beeping coming from your Pip-Boy.
Oh, heck. Okay, left the Pip-Boy on the desk. I'm going to run back to the desk and grab the Pip-Boy and put it back on my wrist as I'm kind of answering it to see what's beeping.
You click on the notification and a message pops up. It says, "Oi, smoothie girl, need you in utilities, Z."
Oh, Zebedee. Okay, I better get my stuff and go and see what she needs.
So you're heading over?
Yes.
Okay. So you head over. It's not that long of a walk. It's about 2 minutes. You're very, very close. Your house is very close to utilities. You see a few people that you kind of know. You nod your head. They are very respectful of you. You were part of the original group. You were one of the main people on the council. You are very well regarded in town as the person to go to with various scientific concerns. You arrive at the utilities, and the utility building, there's sort of an entry room, and then leading off that entry room there is like the power substation, there's the water purifier, and then the biggest room of the lot is where the Fabricator lives. And the Fabricator is basically kind of the first thing that the GEC built. It reconstitutes various raw materials into various resources that you've used to build the town. It's a pretty important piece of technology that you still use, that is still used every now and again. Not as much now the town has been built, but it's still used if something breaks down or if Zebedee has a particular idea, like she does today. You walk into the water purifying room and find Zebedee sat at a computer. Zebedee is a ghoul. She is a ghoul who has been around for a few hundred years at this point, and as such, her legs rotted away long ago. So instead of legs, she has a couple of wheels from a tricycle sort of jimmied onto her hips. So how she tends to get around is usually by her arm power, running that across the floor with a wrench in her teeth, or, swinging around inside the utilities building, just variously fixing things. She's currently sat at the computer trying to figure something out. She doesn't notice that you've walked in, so she's there typing and stuff.
I absolutely do not want to take her by surprise again, not even accidentally. So I'm going to shout from the other end of the room, Z, hi! You called? What's happening?
Augusta! Good, you're here. Right. I'm trying to sort out getting water to everyone's homes.
Okay.
I think I've cracked it.
What are you planning?
Well, I've set things up so this sink here, and you can see next to her there's a sink that has just been jammed into the wall that wasn't there before. I've connected this sink to what I hope to be the system that means that we don't have to all go to wells anymore. We can just have water coming out of taps in everyone's home, and this is the first tap. But the problem is, I can't get the computer to do what it needs to do.
Okay, what do you need it to do?
Well, and she beckons you over, and you can see on the screen a whole load of code, a whole load of different things that you don't initially understand. Give me a skill check. Another intelligence science roll. But this time it's got a 2 difficulty. Oh, 3 successes. Excellent. Okay. So in the code, which at first looks to be completely gobbledygook, you spot in the middle of that the potential for a subroutine that will connect the water purifier and tell it to send water to the sink.
We're controlling all this with just code.
Well, you got the water purifier that's doing its job, right?
Yeah.
And it's telling it currently to put everything towards these wells, but that's stupid. That's nonsense.
Well, you identified it as a point of failure because if someone messes with the wells, then we're screwed.
Yeah, so what I'm hoping to do is to try and reprogram this to send it away down these new pipes I've installed. And if it works going down those pipes... But this is not something that was ever designed for this.
No, because I thought you were doing it like the old-fashioned taps where water just was there, and then when you turned the tap on, the air water pressure like made the water happen. What you're doing is like water on demand. So when they turn the tap, it's like they're pressing a button and requesting water from the purifier.
Yeah, I tried to do it the other way, like you suggested, but it just wasn't going to work because this Vault-Tec stuff, it was all made to do it one way. It wasn't made to be adapted.
I'm fairly sure if we figured out a way to like get all the water up high, it would work. But it's just the effort of digging and constructing like a frame for all of that to sit on would be a huge deal right now. And everyone's a bit, we're still finishing off the town in lots of ways, and like there's running repairs. Yeah, no one's got the time. So that's a smart system. I think I can see how this could work. If we put some extra stuff into this subroutine, we can adapt that code so that it is more effective. And also it would give us a couple of abilities to like turn things on and off if we needed to. So like if the water purifier stopped working properly, we could make an adaptation so that people can't request water that will kill them.
All right, well, if you could, can you have a go? And she rolls back.
I'll do my best.
So you type in what you suspect will be the subroutine that will hopefully make things work. And when you're done, Zebedee looks to you and is by the tap. Ready?
I think so. I'll give it a try.
She turns it on, and at first it splutters a bit, but then water comes out. Zebedee looks at you with a big grin on his face, lifts her arms up and goes, "Yes, it's working!" Right, now that all we need to do is use a fabricator to make enough pipes to outfit every home in Edinburgh.
It's going to take some digging, but it's going to be worth it.
Yeah, 250 odd people who live here. They're living in about 100 homes, 100 buildings. There's also outfitting Michael Hall and the rest. It'll take a while. It'll be a lot of runs for Freddy to do, but, I think it'll be worth it because, like, with the well, like you said, the well system, there's so many areas that could go wrong if there's only, like, 5 outlets in all of town. Yeah. But anyway, this is just one of a few things I called you here to help me out with. Let's go.
Amazing work, though.
Yeah.
Good thinking.
Let's head over to the Fabricator.
Mm-hmm.
So you head into the Fabricator room, and this is, again, the largest building in the utilities building by far. The largest room in the building by far. This was where the GEC was first initialized, and everything that the town was sort of came out of this corner, out of this room. So inside there's a computer console, which is used to control the Fabricator. A sort of very large metal box. Next to it, taller and wider than a super mutant. This is where whatever is fabricated ends up, the finished product. Next to that is a similar massive metal box, which is where raw materials go in. And behind the computer and these two large metal boxes are a bunch of smaller, like, metal boxes, essentially, that are, like, basically processing centers. They've got loads of blinking lights on them and things sticking out of them. Basically, this is it uses a lot of power. And it's not like a fabricator like in Star Trek. Like, you can't just walk up to it and say, "I want a spade," and it'll make a spade. It's got to know that you've got to use it with blueprints for certain things. It can't do anything without a blueprint. It came with a whole bunch. And you have to feed it raw materials. Like, it can't just make something out of nothing. But, yeah, it's a very, very big deal in the town. So Zebedee turns to you and says, this is where we're going to have to make the pipes, but look, I'll be honest with you, it's been working so far, but we haven't been using it as much, and the Gek, when we got it, it was like 100 years past its use-by date when we found it, so I was expecting things to start going a bit weird with the Fabricator, but at times, sometimes it won't even work. Other times, it will make really strange sounds, like don't know what's going on. So while I go and while I go and activate certain things on the computer, can you look at the processing centers and see if there's anything weird going on back there?
Okay, we really do have to figure out if we can figure out a blueprint for the fabrication device. We could be sorted for ages.
Yeah, I mean the problem with that is, when I was working at Vault-Tec before the bombs fell. The only place I knew that would even have that would be at my old place of work in Washington. Maybe a blueprint exists somewhere else in another Vault-Tec building, but I wouldn't even know where the fuck to start. So that might be a non-starter, but that's something to bring up at the next meeting for sure, the next council meeting.
Definitely something to look out for, but it'd be everyone would want that if it exists. Also, I might have found something, but I'll tell you about it later. There's like new kind of thing in that Mr. Handy that we got. I think there's a new category of Mr. Handy that we hadn't encountered before.
Okay. Oh. I forgot about that thing. Oh. I'll add it to the list. Go by the processing centers and let's see where we can fix this stuff.
I'm trying to get this working right.
Okay, so you go behind the processing centers and Zebedee starts tapping things on the computer and activating various things. And you can hear a weird buzzing sound from one of the processing centers in the middle.
That's not sounding right. Do you want me to check it out, or do you want me to mess with stuff on the computer and see if it's reporting what's wrong properly?
I'll stay here and keep tapping and keep activating different things. If you can open up Processing Center 4 and see if any of the warning lights come on from inside.
And there are still safety glasses around. I don't want to, it was a near miss last time.
Safety glasses? Are you getting soft?
Oh, okay.
Oh, don't be like that. And she throws some welding goggles at you. Like, never designed for this purpose, but, old pre-war welding goggles will do the job.
Yeah, just, when you stick your head in your stuff that is being fabricated, it can be messy and explosive occasionally.
You should get ghoulified. You never have to worry about that stuff anymore.
Not ready for that. We've talked about this.
Alright, fine. I know you like the sense of taste and everything else that you don't get, but whatever.
And the whole getting older thing. I'm not done with that yet. Right. Where am I checking here? 4. Processing Unit 4.
Okay, so you open up the panel on Processing Unit 4. And do give me an intelligence science roll. Ooh, a failure. Alright, so as you open it up...
A good chance to use AP.
Yeah, good chance to use some AP, which you've got loads of. Do you want to use some AP?
I will use an AP. And also, we just got a hydrate redeem, so I just took a drink. I've forgotten how I use AP. So I'm going to take AP down 1 to 5. And is there a mechanism where I can re-roll only 1, or should I just use the dice roller thing?
AP means you can re-roll 1. So just roll a d20 on the side. There is the dice thing on the left side panel. Just roll a d20 there, and you need to get under 13. Oh, there we go. You got a success. Cool. All right. So success. So as you're going through the insides, you think, and warning lights are coming up, but you find... You see that there's a part of the Fabricator that you don't think should be there. You don't really understand what you're looking at, but it looks a little bit similar to the kind of things you just pulled out of the Mr. Handy.
I lean back a minute. Steve, have you been messing with this?
No. I haven't been able to. Like, getting from the computer to the processing unit as I activate different things. That's why I needed you. I couldn't be in two places at once. What have you found?
There's something weird in here. It looks like the stuff I found in the Mr. Handy. I don't know if I should take it out. It might make it worse.
Huh. Alright, let me have a look. Okay, so she wheels herself over and has a look and is just like... That's not Vault Tech.
No, I didn't think so either.
Huh.
Do you want me to tell you what I found out about the ones in the Mr. Handy?
Yeah.
It looks like it's two minerals held close to each other, and they mess with the flow of the electricity in weird ways that we haven't. It acts like a small version of a vacuum tube. So like we can control the electricity and keep it flowing in one direction. But it looks like it sometimes also acts like an amplifier, and it gets extra electrons from somewhere and produces a larger signal coming out than goes in. But I can't figure out how that works with two minerals. And the minerals, I don't know what they are either.
Huh. Okay. That's not something I've ever seen before. You know what? Here's what we're going to do. Alright, well, for now, this thing is clearly siphoning off energy away from the Fabricator, and it can't stay. Alright, I'm going to go by the computer. I'll go back to the computer. I'm going to try and shut things down. And when certain things down, when I do, I'll give you the word, and you try and pry that off, alright?
Yeah, at the very least I can isolate it and then keep the rest of the circuit working without it.
Alright, let's get to work. So she wheels herself back over to the computer, and you're waiting to get for her to give the word. She's tapping on the computer, then she just says, "Alright, try it now."
So I basically pull out the cable on one side and lift the board off.
As you do that, you hear a massive bang.
Oh shit.
You look around, and there's smoke immediately filling up the room. You can sense that you can see that there's faintly in the corner of the room there's like flames coming up.
Okay, I slide the board back in, connect the cable, and get over to try and deal with the fire or the source of the smoke.
You walk around, and there's another bang, and at that point, you don't know what happens. Everything goes black. So now let's go back in time a bit. In the northeast of town stands a medical building, one of the larger buildings in town, made up of a waiting area. There's a small ward, an examination room with its own robo-doc, a lab, and a place for its staff to sleep, its staff of 2. In the waiting area, Nurse Becky, a ghoul, who it is rumoured has been wearing the same nurse's uniform for over 200 years, is at her desk, working on a computer, as there's 2 people in the waiting room awaiting to see the doctor. Becky is there waiting for the red bulb next to the computer to light up to signal when she can send in the next patient in to see the doctor. Eventually that red bulb lights up, and she stands and leads the super mutant Alpert into the doctor's examination room to see the doctor. Catherine, would you please describe your character?
So Jade is super mutant with green yellowish color skin, probably male. All super mutants are supposed to be, but since he acts like an old granny sometimes, people might question that. I lost.
It's okay, just describe what your character looks like.
And small for a mutant, only around like 7 feet.
Okay, you're wearing your lab coat?
Yep.
Alright, cool. So, Jade, your character, he is essentially the closest to the town's doctor as you can get. He is by far the most medically trained, but he is a super mutant. So, most people don't expect a super mutant to be a doctor, but here we are. Edinburgh is full of all sorts of people of all shapes and sizes. So Nurse Becky walks in and says, "Alright, here's Alpert. He's got some, well, I'll let him explain. And she walks out, and Alpert sits down next to you.
What has happened today? Albert?
Yeah, I'm Alpert. Alpert is a big hulking super mutant. He is part of the Mindful Mutants. As you can see on the map in the bottom right corner, there's a Mindful Mutant compound. Previously, there was a group of mutants that were found called the Mindful Mutants who worship a particular mindfulness book, pre-war mindfulness book, and they've set up their own compound in town, and Alpert is one of the disciples of the Mindful Mutants. So he just says to you, well, I've been trying to, concentrate on the moment, as I'm supposed to, but I've been unable to concentrate. I haven't been able to reach the moment like I used to. Honestly, some days I've been finding it hard to get out of bed. Everything just feels a bit harder, but there's nothing... It's not physical. I don't know what's going on with me. I'm not in myself.
That doesn't sound good.
So I'd like you to do a medicine check for me. So an intelligence medicine roll, please. Okay, that's 2 successes, so you get another AP back. So you're now, again, back to maximum as a team, 6. So it's very clear from what Alpert has said that he is suffering a moderate form of depression. You have several options for treatment. You can prescribe him some chems, or you could use both of these, or you could set up the RoboDoc to administer therapy to Alpert. How would you like to proceed?
It's really hard not to take in outside knowledge.
Well, you can try. I mean, if you say something that your character probably wouldn't know, I'll let you know. But, I kind of... Yeah. Just do what you think is best.
Okay, let's see. So, trouble getting out of bed. Do you sleep more or less than normally?
A lot less. A lot less. I'm so fucking tired, Doc.
Are you active? Use all those muscles?
Yeah, I'm still doing work in the farm. I'm still connecting with the earth. That is normal. I've not really changed what I do in the day. It's just everything's become harder, and I don't know why. Like, what's wrong with me, Doc?
So, any new thoughts? Anything in your mind changing, or things you're thinking about?
Give me a charisma medicine roll. The way these sheets work on Roll20, you can do that. In the top left of your character sheet, there's like a dice symbol.
I have it.
Okay, cool. So he sort of looks at you and says, well, I'm not seeing many positives. And I think about, because I know we're super mutants, right? Like, we don't die, but like other people do. But at the same time, I've been thinking about death. My death, what that would be. you can see, and I don't think you've necessarily seen this before, but you see that he's got a few tears starting to form in his eyes. Like it's not super mutant crying isn't something that isn't that common.
And are you afraid of your own death, or are you...
Sometimes I'm really afraid of it, and sometimes I feel like maybe I would welcome it. But there's no specific reason. Like, Doc, just give it to me straight. What's wrong? Do you know what's wrong with me?
I suspect it would be... would it be what humans call depression? How normal is that in, like, ghouls or super mutants?
In the world of Fallout, it's not. It's something that everyone is capable of. I'm not trying to give like a PSA on depression or mental health here, but this is just the way it is. Like, if you have a brain that is mostly human or comes from human, you are very capable physiologically of developing depression. So it's something that can happen. This might be the first time in the history of the universe that a super mutant has had clinical depression, to your knowledge. So the treatments that you have available to you are the same ones you recommend to a human. You've got some chems that they could take. They could do therapy with the RoboDoc once a week and talk things out. But that's basically the level of what you can do for Alpert at this point.
So Jade will go, well, it seems to me that it could be depression. And what I will recommend is we set up appointments with the therapy robot. And I give you some medicines to help you sleep at night, so you get your sleep. That is important. And then we'll talk again in a couple of weeks and see how you're doing.
Okay, because you passed the charisma medicine check before, Alpert says to you, okay, I trust you, Doc. I wouldn't usually. I'm not really into, chems. I like to keep myself pure and try to be purely in the moment as much as I can. But clearly this is a serious deal, so yeah, all right, I'll do what you say. So you
If you feel better about it, we can start with the session with the therapist robot, and if you still have trouble sleeping, because sleep is important, then you can come back to me. I will see you in some weeks after you have talked with the therapist anyway.
All right, I'll start an appointment with RoboDoc with Nurse Becky on my way out.
Is that better? I'm not saying you will have to use chems all the time, but if you still have trouble sleeping, come back to me and we talk about it again.
Okay, thanks, Doc. He stands, and even if you don't want it or not, he gives you a big fat hug. And then he walks out.
And Jade will return the hug.
Aww. You're a good doctor. I like that. So, after a while, you type some stuff up about Alpert, you make a recommendation, you write down what recommendations you've made, you add that to your files, and then you hit the big button on your desk that would light up the red light bulb near Nurse Becky, and she brings in your next patient. And she brings in Eldridge, a ghoul who you've not really talked to before. And he sits down and says, Doc, I think I'm starting to go feral.
Well, I was about to say, we can't have that, can't we?
No, I mean, really, no. Like, I'd rather not.
I understand that. What makes you think that? Or say that?
Well, for the last few nights, I've woken up in places I don't remember going to. One night I found myself in the bug enclosure on the farm, and I clearly had been eating a rad scorpion, raw. Like, that's new. I'm scared, Doc. I don't know what's going on. Give me an intelligence medicine check. Difficulty of 2. So you need 2 successes. Okay, you got 1 success. You can spend. I say you can spend an AP to make that up to 2. Oh no, sorry.
Also,
You can spend an AP to do a reroll rather of 1.
Yeah.
I believe she has a lab coat too.
Oh, right. So
Yeah.
what does the lab coat do? That gives you a reroll as well?
A reroll on intelligence-based tests.
Oh, great.
I actually think my medic have some. Let's see, medic.
She may have a perk or 2 also.
Oh yeah, healer. No. Okay, so what did you say? The lab code allows me to re-roll?
Yeah, just so it's easier, just for ease of use, really. On the left of Roll20, at the bottom there's like a left tab thing, and at the bottom there's like a dice. You click on that, it'll come up with a list of dice in their dice roller. You just click the D20. If you get under 12, then you'll succeeded on your reroll. Do you understand?
Yeah.
Great, there we go. That gets you up to 2 successes. So, this is classic symptoms of going feral. Eldridge is beginning to lose himself.
And
you have the option of using the RoboDoc maybe to assess how far the feral status has got, or you can talk to Eldridge. You've got a number. You can do whatever you think is best, Doc.
What would we normally do? What would be the normal?
Well, as your character knows very well, there is currently no cure for going feral. You've heard rumours in your travels over the years that there are things that can absolutely slow down a ghoul going feral, or even pause it. But you don't have any access to those things yourself now. You have been working on ways to try and cure ghoulification. That is something you have been working on in your lab in the medical building. But so far you have not necessarily been that successful. The best you can offer Eldridge now is, I'm sorry to say, a peaceful end, or the hope that maybe in time before the ghoulification becomes permanent, that you'll be able to find some way to pause it or slow it down.
And again, do we have a safe space inside the town where they can be kept so they don't go feral on the rest of the population? Is that a possibility to offer?
Well, looking at the map, like, the town doesn't have like a prison or anything like that. The closest is that there is a cell in the security armory building, but that's basically the closest you're going to get. I think I know what you're asking for, and I'm trying to think, and like, this is something I hadn't thought about when making the town. But the security armory building may have somewhere that you could put Eldridge if you so chose.
Or maybe that's something Jade is working on having, in addition to the medical facilities, a place where ghouls who wish to help find the cure or wait to see if I find it.
Well, possibly. I mean, you can offer that to Eldridge if you like. You can.
Yeah. Okay, so I am certain, Eldridge, that you are starting to go feral.
Fuck.
And
shit.
You know that I am trying to find something to either cure it or slow it down, right?
I didn't know that. No. How likely do you think it is you'll get something?
I don't have anything now. What we do have is secure areas within the medic hospital, whatever you want to call it, where we can separate you from the rest of the town so you won't kill anyone. You will get food and water, of course. You can wait for me to maybe find a cure. You can help me.
Suddenly you hear a bang coming from outside the building. It's not terribly loud, but it's loud enough that you can hear it, and it is unusual. It is not the kind of thing you would hear in town. What's that?
So, Jade will straighten up and look at windows.
You can't really see much out the window. You can see the rest of town. There's buildings of various heights in between, but you can see some smoke rising in the distance, heading in the direction of the utilities building. Then your pit boy beeps.
And I will look at it.
You can see a notification. You've received a message. It says, Jade, get to utilities. There's been an explosion. Bring Nurse Becky. All hands. Dash. Barry.
So I'll go, Eldridge, I am terribly sorry. We will have to catch up on this one. You know, a possibility is to help you get out of this world as peacefully as possible. Or you can be locked up and kept away from the rest of the city in the hopes that we will find a cure.
Wait,
Think about it.
Have you got to go?
I really have to. We have an emergency on the utilities. I will talk to you as soon as I can again.
Alright, I guess I'll wait here.
And you will have a bit of time to think which option you want to. Is that okay?
Yeah, of course, Doc, yeah. He's taken it pretty well, but he's not really looking at you. He's looking in the middle distance, just a bit. He's really fucking bummed out, which you would be. Yeah. But yeah, so you gather a few of your
before run out. He will look probably down at him and place a hand on his shoulder and go, we find a solution one way or the other. I'm not abandoning you forever. I just have to attend an emergency right now. Is that okay, Eldridge?
Yeah, of course, Doc. Of course. Yeah, go do your thing. Yeah, I'll be here. So you gather up a few of your bits of equipment and stuff, a few cams and stuff, and you grab Nurse Becky and you head out towards utilities.
Yep.
All right. So let's go back in time once again. On the south end of town is the farm, where Edinburgh produces its food. This area takes up a third of the space of Edinburgh, with open fields growing potatoes, carrots, mole fruits, as well as a bug meat enclosure full of rad scorpions and rad roaches that will become amazing bug burgers and other such bug meat products in time. The fields tend to be worked by the mindful mutants, whilst on the other side of the farm area, north of the farmhouse, is the storage building. Now, this is basically just a giant warehouse where all of the town's various supplies and raw materials are processed and catalogued by a particularly gifted admin ghoul. And that's how he calls himself, the admin ghoul, named Bartholomew. Inside the building, there are rows and rows of shelving units and cold storage units. The first few harvests in Edinburgh were exceedingly bountiful. You got pretty lucky. And to the untrained eye, there appears to be an almost infinite amount of food here. However, to the trained eye, it is clear that this amount of food will last the 254 residents of Edinburgh about 3 months. Other shelves feature all sorts of junk, various things that have been scavenged. There seems to be a fair amount of stuff in here. Now, in a gap between the shelving units in the middle of the storage building is Bartholomew, the ghoul who catalogues and monitors everything. He is sat at his favourite place in the world, at his desk, with his computer open on a spreadsheet. He had, up until very recently, been happily updating. The obstacle in the way of his spreadsheet, however, is a meeting he has to endure with the town scavengers and traders, and their leader, Freddie Holmes. Tim, could you describe your character, please?
Yes, I can. Freddie is a short person of about 5'6", and he's very thin. He has very dapper hair slicked back. He's wearing a nice suit, tie, and collared shirt. And he's sitting there just waiting for Bartholomew to start talking. So what do you need this time? And he's got his notepad out.
Bartholomew just turns to you and says, and he doesn't look you in the eye at any point. He just says, well, we're doing pretty good for most things. But the big thing is Zebedee at Utilities needs copper. She's doing this whole water project. She wants to make a whole, piping enough to hook up every home with the water purifier.
So copper.
Yeah. How much copper do you think you'll be able to get? I'd like you to do a skill check. Intelligence barter difficulty 1.
Give me just a second.
One success, perfect. So you know that copper is not the easiest thing to find in the wasteland. It is usually only found as a component of various junk and tech. Little bits of copper inside, like for example maybe an old pre-war telephone would have a little bit of copper inside of it. If you were scavenging to find enough copper to make pipe and industrial level of industrial weight in piping, it would take hundreds of scavenger trips to even begin to get close. However, it is possible that you could maybe try and find a place where there's existing copper piping in buildings or factories, and these may not be the most obvious thing that scavengers have been picking up.
Yeah, he was instantly thinking piping, copper wiring, anything like that. Copper is not a big used large stuff other than piping usually. So he's calculating out, there's no way in hell I'm going to get enough copper for that. I mean, we'd have to find a whole place and demo it out to get the piping.
Also sat with you is parts of your family, your crew. There's Chad Jenkins, a ghoul, who is your closest friend for the closest you have to a confidant, I believe.
Yep.
Then there's Eliza, who is a human who is a lot younger than you, but you sort of see her as your prodigy, I guess, as your mentee. And then there's Terrence, who's also there. He is an older guy, older human, who puts people's backs up. He tells a lot of inappropriate jokes. He's kind of like an inappropriate uncle type. So Eliza chips in and just says, well, I mean, there's a Robco factory near Sanctuary, but we're talking 100 miles from here. that might be the best place to go.
Yeah, but we still have to tear everything down and get the people a haul. I mean, it's not just going to be a small project, is what I'm saying. So we're going to have people there to guard and help make sure that nothing happens. This is not just a simple open a box and there it is. So
Chad pipes up. Well, it's not the worst. It's not the worst job we've done.
No, I mean, it can be done. I'm just making sure that we're all aware of that it's not going to be a simple just run and pick it up, pay a few caps, and we're done.
Bartholomew steps in. Well, this is the big job at the moment. I mean, the town's basically done. And there seems to be... Zebedee seems to be a bit desperate to do this because she explained to me that, like, we've got the system right now. We've got the 5 wells where everyone's getting their water from. But that's too few places where it could go wrong. So it is an area of vulnerability that Zebedee really wants us to sort out.
Well, any one source of water is going to be a limiter to, a base, but you can protect it easier. I see. Okay.
At that point, yeah. Barbara walks in. Now, Barbara is. Oh, I need to get better with the notes thing. That's one thing I'm learning with my first time playing a game. Apologies. I'm just going to look at Barbara.
And as soon as Barbara walks in, you can see Freddy's expression kind of drop.
So Barbara is... Yeah, I can understand why your expression would drop. To the audience, Barbara is one of the teachers at the school in Edinburgh. She works very closely with Harry, who lives with Augusta. She's an older lady. She comes from Diamond City. She's been teaching kids forever. It basically started that she was a massive bookworm. She was really into reading books, and then at some point kids would ask her what she's reading, and that's sort of how her school started in Diamond City. She's now running the school in Edinburgh, and she regularly harasses Freddy to find various books. So she bursts in, and she just immediately says, "Look, you got to get me the big book of science I've been asking for, okay? I've run out of books."
And as I tell you every time, I bring you everything I find, even if it's just half burnt. But I will... It's not like I can specifically go to a library and get one anymore.
Well, why don't you go to the library near Diamond City?
Because some of us have troubles entering the town due to being wanted.
Well, yeah, okay, but this is important. Bartholomew steps in. Hang on, Barbara. We've got the water project. That is clearly what needs to be the priority here, okay? The kids could learn other things. We could get other people to teach the kids. Barbara strikes back. Oh, shut the fuck up. You don't know what you're talking about. You always come in and try to tell me how to educate this town's children. And this fight starts to escalate and escalate and escalate. And you, Terrence, Eliza, and Chad are just sat there watching it play out.
And Freddy just pulls out a pack, lights a cigarette, blows it at them both. We have this every goddamn time. I will do the best for both of you. There's not much more I can. We have to find it. If we will look up at we will try to find some factories for the piping. If we come across any housing, any communities, anything I can find, I will bring you books, magazines, scribbled notes from kids that were stuck to refrigerators. I'll bring you everything that has words on it, Barbara. And
all right, give me a charisma test. Charisma speech. You needed 2 successes for this one.
Oh, this might be rough. Speech, you said?
Charisma speech.
Yeah.
Oh, wow, yeah, definitely. You just got 2 successes. Something about the way you said it or what you said seems to click with Barbara and Bartholomew. They both calm down. And they just say...
We do this every time with the projects, guys. Come on. Just the priorities, we will get what we can. I mean, the resources are limited out there, and I don't like to be shot at. So
Bartholomew says, I'm sorry. You're right. I mean, you go out there and you face a danger for the town every time, and sounds like we may be taking it for granted. And even Barbara looks a bit like she's sort of come to terms with that.
I will do my best for both of you because this community is mine now, and my family lives here, and you're all part of it. So I will definitely do my best to take everything you want in consideration, and hopefully we can find it. Now, other besides the ammo that we're always going to need, batteries, copper pipe, anything else specific besides food that we,
we're doing really good for food.
Water.
We got enough food to last us a few months. We're doing fine for pretty much everything else. This is basically the big things we need at the moment. Copper and whatever books Barbara wants.
Well, I would love to get her what she wants. She will get what I find, but hopefully we can find some sciencey books for her.
Please try, Barbara says. You have no idea. Like, there's only so much pre-war history I can teach, and how much good is that going to be?
Well, start teaching them current history so they know to be scared of who and how to kill certain animals by shooting them in the proper locations and skills they could use nowadays.
Okay, all right. Whatever. And she walks out. So you wrap up the meeting.
She needs something new to read. She's getting really irritating.
Eliza pipes up. I'm so glad I don't do those lessons anymore. I learn more going on runs with you than I do with sitting in her fucking schoolhouse.
Well, she taught you to read in the basics. I mean, without them, you couldn't. I mean, do you think it was... Yeah. It reminds me of stories I heard about public schools in the past.
Public
for funds
schools?
And trying... Oh, way back before the bombs dropped, I guess they had schools where every kid went to.
Oh, God,
and the government paid for it. Yeah. Did you think of having a dozen teachers like her?
Fair enough. Yeah, that sounds awful.
Okay, but you had a good idea about the factories, but that's a little far away. Let's see if we can get some maps and find something closer. Because, yeah, that's 3 to 4 days travel on a good weather day to get there.
I guess we'll have to maybe head over to Micah Hall, see if the council computers have any good maps on north of Boston, north of Diamond City. That might be a good place to start.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't mind visiting those places. It's just we have to be careful. Too many of us are not liked by many of the people.
Yeah. So Eliza says, I'll tell you what, I'm going to go to Micah Hall and I'll try and get some maps and stuff. If you head back home and let everyone know what the plan is, I'll meet you there later, all right?
Who's supposed to be the mentor and mentee as he starts walking out the door listening to her?
Well, I thought I was catching up with you at this point.
He's laughing as he does this. You are doing wonderful, little sister. Pats her on the head and goes out.
Oh, thanks,
he
big
reaches
brother.
up in his case. She's actually probably taller than him. So. And
so she
just
heads
as
off
a
to...
note,
Oh, sorry.
His suit he's wearing is a little too big for him, because he's such a small statured person. It's obviously too big for him.
So Eliza and Terrence head off to Micah Hall and you start heading home, but Chad, your old friend, the ghoul, is walking along with you and he just says, are you sure it's just the bullets and those hunting you that you want to avoid heading towards Diamond City, or is it something else?
You know why.
Yeah, I know why.
Yeah.
I was there. How can I fucking forget?
Yeah, I miss her. I miss all of them, but her in particular. And even though we managed to bury him, still.
Well, at least you're willing to talk about it now. If only with me.
Well, she died protecting us, along with several others. At least most of the children made it out. I can't keep... For the rest of the community, I can't dwell on it. But I'm not ready to go there.
I get the feeling it's not just you sitting on a bunch of trauma. I mean, look around. Everyone's doing their business, you know, but I think everyone's hiding or pushing down something.
Yeah.
At that point, your Pip-Boy beats.
I look at it.
You see a notification. Fire. Utilities building. Bring water.
All right. You can carry some water, and he runs to the well. And we'll draw up some water, since that's our only water supply right now.
Okay.
That he's aware of close by.
Give me an athletic strength check.
Oh, wow.
Okay, so you managed to get... So these wells aren't like wells in our world. They are more mechanical. They are more retro future. You press the button and immediately it doesn't do anything. So you decide to do it manually. So you manage to get the bucket down by manually pushing on the chains like this. But getting it back up is a problem for you. Unless you want to use an action point to do a reroll.
Why not, since we have several of them?
Yeah, so you can use up to 3, but for the first one costs 1 action point, the next one would cost 2, and the third one would cost 3.
Okay, so strength and athletics. Oops, I failed miserably on that one. I hit it a second time.
Okay.
Nope.
In that case,
Freddy's not very strong. Yeah, that is one of his weak games. So he leans over to Chad. Here, help. You know I.
All right, Chad leans over and helps you lift up a pretty large bucket of water. We're talking like, you know, a bucket in our world. It's about 3 times the size of that. So you got a pretty large bucket of water that you both managed to carry over to the utilities building. So when you get there, you arrive at the scene with Chad at the same time as Jade arrives at the scene. And you see that there is lots of smoke billowing out of the utilities building. There is the fire is sort of small and medium size. It's not the biggest fire in the world, but it's enough. You got there pretty quick. And you can see Geraldine, a ghoul who is a volunteer on the security team. She is just dragging Zebedee out of the building. And she drags her over to near where Augusta is sitting. Augusta is sat on the ground. She is covered in like black soot. It is very clear and obvious that she has been engulfed in smoke, and she has inhaled a lot of smoke and is not necessarily going to be the most able-bodied at this point. Geraldine dumps Zebedee's like main body on the ground and then places next to her Zebedee's severed arm. Her left arm has become severed at some point. Other people in the town are arriving and going inside and throwing water on the fire. So you've got a number of things that you could do here. You could help assist put out the fire. You could help. You can go and see how you can assist Augusta and Zebedee. What would you like to do?
Chad and Freddy are just going to run in and try to throw the water on the Electrical stuff that is on fire. Unless somebody stops them, because they're not really educated on that stuff.
So the fire isn't really... The electrical components inside the building aren't what's on fire. What's happened is that the computer has exploded out. So as you walk in, you can see that the computer has exploded out and has set fire to various bits of furniture inside the room. So the fire itself is not necessarily electrical.
Okay.
So to do that, difficulty 2. No, let's make it a difficulty 1. Endurance survival, please. It was going to be 2, but you've got Chad with you, so I've knocked that back down to 1. So you just need 1 success. And you have got 2 successes. So that means you're going back up to 6 action points, and you and Chad successfully put out the fire. Jade, what are you going to do?
Jade is going to help Zebedee and Augusta.
Okay, let's go back down to yours. Okay. As you approach Zebedee, you see that she is currently unconscious. She doesn't look as bad as Augusta, because her skin was already, because she's a ghoul, already pretty dark. But you can tell that she has been in an explosion, and her armor's been severed. How would you like to help her?
How is Augusta?
Give me an intelligence medicine DC difficulty 1 to assess how Augusta's doing.
Doing a triage now. What did you say? Intelligence medicine?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ah, 2 successes. Excellent. Okay, so Augusta is going to be fine. Augusta basically needs some bed rest and maybe a week of fresh air. Like, there doesn't appear to be that much damage. She's conscious. She's breathing a bit heavily, but not in a way that would signal that there's been some major damage there. She's just... Basically, she needs to spend the next week in bed coughing a lot and coughing up all the gunk she's breathed in, and she's probably going to be alright. Okay. But because that was so good, I'll give you some more information about Jade. Jade is a ghoul, and she will probably regain consciousness at some point and probably be fine. But the problem is that she's not going to regrow she's not going to regrow or heal, as it were. The damage that has been done is done unless you can do something about it.
Yeah, the question is, can it be put back on? Is it...
I mean, you're willing to try. If you want to try, you can. If you can do anything here. If you want to just leave her, you can. If you want to try and render her conscious, you can. You've got... basically, she's there, she's unconscious in front of you, and her arm's globbed off, so what would you like to do? But
they have no blood, or they have blood?
Ghouls don't really have... they have blood, kind of, but it's not... Ghoul physiology is a weird one. She's got more in common with, a zombie in, from fiction in our universe than she does a human at this point. But, a radioactive zombie, basically.
So there's no need to stop the bleeding and stuff like that. She's not going to bleed out.
No.
Okay. So, first off, Jade is going to try and wake her up. See if, the slight tap on the cheek or shaking her a bit, wakes her up.
Okay, give me an intelligence medicine roll, difficulty 2. Wow, rolling really good today. Or I did not take into account. This is good for me, this session, because I'm learning like what people are good at and stuff, so I can actually do skill checks in future sessions that are reasonably difficult or challenging. So this is good. But 2 successes. That's what you needed. You shake her, you poke her in the chin, you bring out some smelling salts from your bag. You don't know if smelling salts will even work or not, but it appears that they do. And Zebedee just goes, "Ah, yes, what the fuck? What the fuck happened?"
Well, hello, Zebedee. You tell me, what happened?
Jade looks to you, then looks to Augusta. Augusta, what did you do?
That's not now, Zebedee.
She goes to point. She tries to point at you with her stump and just goes, "What the fuck? Where's my arm?"
It's right here. Now we will figure that out. Don't worry.
God, Nurse Becky better still be good at sewing.
And Jade will basically do the like, can they get a concussion, or don't they have brain enough for that? Like,
You were really asking deep questions about, and I thought I knew a lot about ghouls, but I don't know. I don't know if a ghoul can get concussion or not. I'm going to say that is possible. I'm going to say the ghouls can get concussion. People who are watching who are really big on Fallout lore, who know for sure that I'm speaking bullshit on this, I'm sorry. It's just not something I've thought about before that I probably should have. But yeah, concussion is a possibility. So if you want to check for concussion,
like other normal again. Is anything else wrong except the arm? Do I have to be aware of anything before that? Because if she isn't bleeding out, and there isn't any rush in getting the arm back on, I want to make sure that she's okay.
Okay, your character Jade has been doing a lot of research into ghoul physiology because you have wanted to try and find a way to stop ghouls from being feral, amongst other things. So I'd say that your character knows a fair amount about ghoul physiology. So I'm going to say medicine intelligence, difficulty 1. It should be pretty straightforward for you. You got that 1 success. So Zebedee is a tough and she would use these words to describe herself. She's a tough old bitch. She's been alive for over 200 years. She has been in and seen some wild stuff in her time. And she's almost certainly going to be fine. She's going to need a hell of a wash. And she's going to want the arm attached as soon as possible. The longer you leave the arm, the more likely it will be a permanent loss for her over time. Yep. You need to get her... Either you need to try and reattach it yourself here, or you desperately need to get her back to medical so the robo-doc can attach it. You can try and attach it yourself now. You can try and get the robo-doc to do it later. That's up to you.
I think that's... okay, you look fine. Probably someone is better at sewing than Jade is. He knows that it's a possibility, we can try it. Let's go. So I think Jade is probably basically going to pick her up and place the arm, like, pick her up, place the arm on top and go, okay, let's get you fixed up.
Okay, so you go off to medical and you're going to fix up Zebedee's arm. As you do that, Augusta, you sit out there and you don't know what happened exactly. You see approaching a giant super mutant. Like, super mutants are pretty big, but this super mutant is a good foot taller than all the others, and you immediately recognize him as your very old friend, Old Tallman. Old Tallman is the leader of the council, and there wasn't really going to be a leader of the Council of Edinburgh, but it just kind of happened because Old Tallman has been around possibly longer than super mutants have existed. Like hundreds and hundreds of years. He has lived so many lifetimes he doesn't remember half of them. He has been a raider. He has been a teacher. He has been almost everything a super mutant can be. But the one thing there's two things he's never been that he is now. He has never been the leader of a town, and he has never had roommates. He has been living in the mindful mutant compound, learning mindfulness himself, and most days his job is usually just to oversee the town and mildly complain about the frustrations of having housemates. But now he walks up and he looks up the utilities building and just turns to you and says, "What happened?"
I'm kind of hazy on it, but I think a computer blew up.
Which computer? The Fabricator computer.
One of the ones by the Fabricator, yeah.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Okay, give me an intelligence science roll. Difficulty 3. This is going to be a hard one, I think. Okay.
She can buy dice to continue to roll if she wants.
Yeah, to reach a full success on this one, you're going to have to buy dice.
What does that cost? Luck or action or something else?
Action points is the best one. You've got 6 action points right now. To buy 1 will cost you 1 action point. To buy an additional action dice after that, it'll be 2, and so on. So you can buy a maximum of 3, and that would use up all your action points.
I might risk 3 at this point.
Okay,
if anyone wants to shout at me about that, now's your moment.
You can roll 1 at a time and see if you get it.
That's a good thought. I'll do that.
Okay, so just roll 1 d20 at a time, and let's see how this goes. That is not a success.
I'll try 1 more and then stop. Which will take us to 3.
That is a success, and I believe that might even be a critical success.
It is.
Is science one of your tagged skills?
Mm-hmm.
Is that under the number of skill points you have in science?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, that counts as 2 successes. So you can either get one of your action points back, or you can get even more information about what just happened. It's up to you.
I think we want maximum amount of information about what just happened.
Okay, let me go back to my notes. So, as much as you remember, there was a device that you still have on you that should not have been there. That appeared to have a different kind of technology you've never seen before. As a result of you removing that sent off a halt and catch fire computer code to the computer, which sent the CPU inside the computer into overdrive, and it kept it getting warmer and warmer and warmer and warmer until doing these repeat cycles over and over and over again until the computer straight up exploded. And there are definitely parts inside that computer that you cannot replicate, that without them the town can no longer use the Fabricator at all, and it would be almost impossible to fix it with what you have in the town. This means that the township of Edinburgh is facing a future without the Fabricator. Do you tell this to Old Tolman, or do you keep it to yourself for now?
How privately are we positioned compared to everyone else?
Well, right now the focus is mostly on the fire. At this point, the fire has been put out, and the few townspeople are there basically celebrating with... God, that is not the right time. With Freddie and Chad, that's the ones, who are now being seen as heroes because they put the fire out. They have saved the utility building. So there is a lot of commotion away from you at this point of people thinking the problem has been solved. Only you... If you were to speak to Old Tolman, they were not likely to hear you.
Okay. There was something extra in the machine. I'm not entirely sure what it was. Zebedee suggested we try to remove it. I supported them in that idea. And when we did, it accelerated, it heated up very, very quickly, and then it exploded. Now, that technology wasn't in there before. I don't remember seeing it in there when we put the whole thing together. I don't know what happened, apart from removing it caused the thing to explode. We couldn't have done anything to stop it. We tried. I don't think we can fix it right now with what we have here.
Old Tolman slowly sits down next to you, just looks at you and just says, well, that's a lot.
Yeah.
Someone sabotaged it, and we can't fix it.
I mean, if we had the parts, we probably could fix it. We just don't know where the parts are right now. And you know how much work it was getting all this in the first place.
Okay. Well, for now, I want you to go to medical and get yourself checked out. And I'm going to go and refer to other members of the council and figure something out, alright? Until then, you say
Okay.
nothing.
One more thing. If you get the opportunity, can we get some extra safety equipment in place, please? Because I think we could have done with some today.
Yeah. That'll definitely go on the agenda of the next meeting for sure. But first things first. Got to find out what's been damaged and where to find it. All
yeah,
right.
of course.
You
Thank
go
you.
to medical. So there's a period of time that goes by. A few days go by. Jade and the Robo-Doc manage to successfully reattach Zebedee's arm. Zebedee talks more with Old Tolman and informs him of what specifically happened. She, along with Augusta's help, analyze what's left, what the scene that's left in the Fabricator room. And a few days later, there has been a meeting called amongst the council. At this point, news about the Fabricator has kind of leaked out. And so people in the town kind of know something's gone wrong with the Fabricator, but they don't know what. And the town council, Edinburgh Council, has tried to alleviate panic and saying it's fine, it's routine, it's just a standard thing that needs replacing. Freddy will probably be able to get that on his next run, it's not a problem. But you know that it's not going to be that easy. So the meeting is taking place in Micah Hall. Micah Hall is the big central hall, like building in the center of town. It's very ornate as it can get from something built out of the Garden of Eden creation kit. There's a main hall room, which is where basically town parties are held, and there have been a fair few parties over this time. Upstairs, there is, on the second floor, there is like a bunch of offices that each council member has, and on the third floor is the council chamber itself, which is basically just a big room with a big long table and a bunch of chairs. And present at the meeting is the head of the council, Old Tolman, the security councillor, Roman, who will be a character that Jordan is playing when Jordan joins our game. I'm not going to roleplay as Roman, but I'm just going to... He's basically there. Barbara Jones, the teacher, she's on the council speaking on education. There's Augusta, the science counsellor. Jade is there as the health counsellor. And the infrastructure counsellor, Zebedee, is there. This is the first meeting that Zebedee has actually attended in weeks, months even. And also in attendance is Freddy. Freddy has been called to the meeting as well. And he doesn't entirely understand why. This has never happened before. And as you get settled in and sit down, Old Tolman stands to address you and says, so I assume you're all aware that the Fabricator has been damaged and we are missing a key part of it. And then Zebedee just interrupts in and says, yeah, specifically, we can fix most of the Fabricator. However, there's one part we cannot fix. The S742U board. Old Tolman just says, yes, thank you, Zebedee. I was going to get to that. So without this part, the Fabricator will be useless, and over time, various parts of the town, as things break down, we will no longer be able to fabricate replacements, which means that Edinburgh, as we know it now, will start to decline in its capabilities for growing food, for purifying water, and various other things that we have grown to rely on over the last few months. So if anybody has anything to say or contribute to the meeting, go for it.
Although
Does anybody know where a replicator can be found where we can get this part? I mean, I'll go out and find it if you let me know where to go.
At our best guess, it's probably a very long way. There weren't many of those made. They must have been manufactured somewhere, but it's probably either middle of the country or the other side of the country.
To get more information on this, Augusta, you can do an intelligence science roll, and with 2 successes, I'll be able to give you some more information.
Use them.
You have 1 success. Would you like to use any action points?
Or do you also have a lab coat you could reroll?
Okay.
Let's call that one a lab coat reroll. I do have a lab coat, although I'm probably not wearing it to the meeting.
I'll let you wear it. I have a feeling you'll be wearing it everywhere.
I mean, people need to know my station just by looking, right?
We did have full up on the group action point, right?
We're now last time I checked, you have 3 left.
We are currently at 3. I also have marked.
Okay.
So go ahead and use them if you need to.
I'll try for 1.
Not meant to be.
Let's go with that.
Okay. So you can't remember any more information about the Fabricator.
Let
me just try and do a roll in public, because I think there's something I can do here.
Jade have science 2?
Yeah, okay, yeah, I'll let Jade have a go at this.
And I mean, he might have been interested too, depending on what he needs for his science.
Yeah, there's things in his backstory that would make sense that he would know some things. So yeah, let's make that one a DC2 as well.
Otherwise, is there a roll assist? I don't know how that works in the system too much yet.
Oh, Augusta, you can offer assistance, which means that you basically roll in and add in an extra D20.
Okay, so if you want to do a roll, I'll assist you.
No need. Jade has a critical success. So that's like 3 successes. So you can bank up that AP. In fact, yeah, that's pretty much the only thing you can do with this one. You can bank up that AP. So you've got now back to 3 action points. So Jade, you come from a vault in the capital wasteland. And you remember, whilst you were there, you saw that there was a fabricator in that vault. This would lead you to believe that there are fabricators similar to the one out of the Garden of Eden creation kit in every vault. That is the thing that would make the most sense to you.
So, yeah. I think while the rest of them talk and Jade will sit and then, oh, we had one of those in the vault. It might be in every vault.
Zebedee chimes in and says, that's possible. When I was working at Vault-Tec, I only ever worked on the water chip. I wasn't in any. I didn't really know about any other department they were working on, but that's quite likely.
I never saw behind the scenes at mine.
Yeah, for whatever reason, Augusta, you didn't get too involved in that kind of thing. You didn't get involved with the Fabricator for whatever reason. That's normal. That's all right. That'll be another
That
department.
was all managed by the overseers and their staff. We never were allowed back there.
So old Tolman chimes in. So it's only the one part, and it's potentially in a vault where or in a fabricator that may or may not. Most wasteland scavengers may not entirely be aware of its existence. Is that what you're saying?
It's vault normally getting raided because they're open now, all of them, or
well, we've raided a few ourselves.
Out of character.
Yeah, what is the state of vaults at this time period? Are they all open? Just some?
As far as you know, most vaults are open at this point. There may be a couple that aren't, that still have vault residents inside that have never left. But to your knowledge, every vault you have ever come across has been open.
Okay, so it's anything we've run across. There might be unique ones. Okay.
Yeah, but I'll tell you what, actually, you know what? I'm feeling generous.
It'll
wear
off.
Try and work out. I've got a test in mind. I just need to look at someone's character sheet to work out which test it is. I've just got your character sheet open, Lavaita. Just not to look at your stats, just to look at what skills are there, because I have an idea. Right, okay, yeah. If you do... Anyone can do a survival intelligence roll at this point. I'm not going to tell you what the difficulty is. And if you fail this, you can spend points or whatever. But if you fail, this is not the end of the world. But I think it'll be fun. Okay. All right, Freddie and does anybody want to up their scores with any way? If they don't, then we can go with what you've got. If you want to up your scores, you can with re-rolls and whatever.
I will take an action point and re-roll one, and I succeeded on the second one, though Excellent. It was not a critical.
Okay, so you're back down to 2 action points. Freddie, you go out into the wasteland a lot, as we've established, and over your travels around the Commonwealth, you have found yourself going through an area of the Commonwealth called Quincy. And remember, in Quincy, you have definitely seen a vault door. And the big number on it was 88. So you know for sure that there is a vault in Quincy numbered 88. You don't know anything else about it.
And how far is Quincy from here?
It's about a week on foot. It's actually maybe the first part of the Commonwealth that you go past. It's why you know so much. About it. It's basically an area that you tend to walk through on your way into the rest of the Commonwealth. So it takes you about a week to get there on foot with your Brahmin and the rest of your party.
Yeah, I believe I've seen it. There's a vault in Quincy. Vault 88, if that'll help. I think I saw on the door. That's probably our closest opportunity.
I wish we'd got around to creating that big list of all the vaults we knew about. That would be really handy. It's still on this to-do list.
Yeah, and I just remember seeing the doors. I don't recall if it was open or not completely, or at all. But when get there, we should figure it out. We have to generally go that way anyway to get to where we're going for any other supplies.
Pip-Boy can generally open them, at least. It's a question of what's inside.
I'm barely able to figure out how to take messages as he holds his arm up. You guys in this fancy technologies.
Oh, I grew up with it.
I grew up with Scadro, with Radro, and never mind. I'm glad you lived a much more comfortable life than most of us.
Oh, let me tell you about it someday.
We should over a drink or three. And at this point, he will give directions and kind of explain how to get to this place, what routes we would have to take, and how long it would take one way. I mean, if there's other places, I mean, I need to get some copper piping, so we might be able to find something there.
Oh, God, yeah, the water. Oh, that would have been really handy when the fire happened.
At this point, old Tolman pipes up. I would think that the God board, did you say, Zebedee? Zebedee pipes up and says, "It's technically the S742U board. It's only ever been informally called the God board."
Well, I'm going to need somebody to come along who knows what the heck this is and how to take things apart if we do find one.
I can probably do that if I'm allowed. Can you spare me that long?
Well, yeah, I mean, look, the way I see it, Augusta, you have to go. You're the person who knows the most about vaults. Freddy, I think you are the person who knows the way to Quincy, so it has to be you that goes. And this is an important mission, so maybe you should take a few other people. Old Tormund pipes up and says, "Well, this isn't going to be a typical trading mission. We need to keep the team small. Jade,
we also need to make
would you be
sure
able
we
to
cover...
go? Jade? Would you be willing to go with them?"
I have a couple of things to wrap up before, but if we're sure the town can handle itself for a time, I will of course do what I can to help.
Well, I think Nurse Becky will be able to see to the town's medical needs with the help of the Robo-Doc, but also, what about you, Roman? Will you go? And I don't want to roleplay Jordan's character, but Roman basically agrees and says that, you know, the rest of the security team can keep things going, looking after the wall. He can be there to protect the rest of the group. So Tolman just says, "Well, we have a plan. Roman, Jade, Augusta, Freddy, you head to Quincy, you head to Vault 88, and you find us this God board thing. Zebedee, you go back to utilities and try to keep going what you can and try to repair what you can, and make sure the rest of the town doesn't slip into disrepair. I'll try and keep the rest of the town calm about this. Introduce some new policies and protocols to try and make sure the town keeps going. Alright. Job's a good one. I think that's the end of our meeting. Unless anybody else has any other business?
I think we're good. We're going to need some supplies if we're going to be going that way, though. Especially if we possibly have to break into a place, so...
Alright. Best bet. You should probably head over to the storage. Have a word with Bartholomew, see what he can spare.
Yeah. Just giving you the heads up, we're going to have to take some stuff along. We may need to take some extra stuff to trade, too, if there's already some stuff going on around there, and to get the rest of the supplies we need. So let's not waste it just on the board, but that is definitely going to be our main objective.
Right, take what you can. Take whatever Bartholomew can spare. If he gives you any shit for it, tell him that I say it's okay.
Anything. All right. I'm good with that.
All right.
And he winks at him.
That means everybody organize a couple of things. I've got some ideas about things that might help in the vault and afterwards. Sorry, still got some of the smoke.
All right. You don't mean you need me to tell you how important this mission is?
Yeah. Well, you guys, he looks over. Think you can be ready to leave tomorrow, or do we need another day?
Tomorrow morning, if we can figure out everything that we need, should be okay. The sooner we get back with this, the better. Either we get back with this, or I guess we don't get back.
What time of day do we have now?
It's midday. It's lunchtime, basically, when you're meeting today.
Well, I don't want to be once tomorrow. We get it. All right, we can have a early camp.
If we leave at sunrise, we'll get the most out of the day before we have to stop.
But I do have things to wrap up here before we go.
Of course, sorry.
Well, hopefully you can maybe manage them quickly, but the sooner we leave, the sooner we can find this damn board. I don't like the idea that we could have found the home finally, and we're going to have to. We don't want to lose it.
Okay, this is me talking now, but we have a couple of options as players at this point. I've got maybe another hour's worth of stuff, I think, roughly. We could go through now. So we could take a break now so people can go to the toilet and get a drink or whatever and then play through another hour. Or we could leave it there and pick up where we are next week. What do you guys want to do? I'm happy either way.
I'm thinking, in my opinion, is just because we're at a good cutoff, and if we're going to start, I mean, they can, unless you want to role play out them taking care of their business.
I have a plan for that.
You know,
I have made a plan for that, like basically going around and saying goodbyes and stuff, essentially. But if you want to just pick up that next week, that'd be okay.
Yeah.
I'm fine either way.
I'm fine. Yeah. I mean, I have things I'm supposed to do here, but I already planned on being busy until about 3:30. So my time. So I got about a half hour anyway. 40. So.
All right. If that's the case, then we'll just leave it there.
Fried.
Okay.
Fair enough. We can leave. We can leave it there, and I can add all this stuff onto next week. So okay. So you all leave the meeting, and you start going off and preparing for your adventure. In another place. At exactly as this happens, there is a town many miles away to the north. And there's a farmer just working his land. His kid is off playing with some junk. Not many people are around. And this farmer is just milling the land until he spots something in the distance. He looks up. And up on the hill there is a Mr. Handy robot. An especially clean and shiny Mr. Handy robot. Behind this robot, like there's the hill there, the robot standing on top. Behind the hill stands 100 other robots. Different shapes and sizes. You've got Mr. Handies, you've got Mr. Gutsies, you've got Robo Brains, you've got all sorts. And they just stand there waiting. And that's the end of our first session of Fallout. It never fucking changes. Woo!
Yeah. Now you got me worried.
I have learned that I make way too many things to fit in a session. Way too many things. I planned out so much stuff and we got about 3/4 of it maybe. And that's only with 3 of you. If there was 4 of you, we would have done even less.
Yep, it's better to have a little extra though, so you can always reuse it later along the line. I had a lot of fun, so
it's all there in the flavor.
Yeah, so I guess on that point we'll pick up next week. Next week. That's a word. So yeah, everyone, if you want to say your goodbyes and plug whatever you have to plug, or just say whatever you like, now's the time.
All right. Yeah. Well, we got a Vampire the Masquerade game coming up for the channel here in a few weeks. Also, look forward to that. Other than that, hi, I'm Tim. Goodbye. Have a good rest of your day.
Is everyone, if anyone needs new clickety-clack stuff or other RPG-related stuff, go to North Foundry and check out their stuff. They have these enamel pins and shiny clickety-clack rocks in every one of the rainbow's color, figuratively and literally. Very nice stuff. And use the lolly code and get, I think, 10% off.
Thank you for that, everyone. I've been Lavaita, and then we're going to be back. Well, some of us are going to be back on Tuesday for Marvel enjoyment in the Marvel universe. Fun times. Yeah, Tuesday, 8 o'clock BST. So, yeah.
All right, so that was... I think I definitely had fun with that. I hope you guys did too. If you didn't, I'm sure you'll let me know in our chat later on. And please do, because I'm new at this. I'm just trying to figure things out. But yeah, we'll be back in 2 weeks for this particular game. We're going to be weekly, but I had a thing on a Sunday night that I had to do to get out the way. But then, so we'll be back with this game in 2 weeks, and then weekly from there on in for as long as it takes to finish this. So thank you all for watching. Thanks for playing, and we'll see you all in 2 weeks. Bye-bye, everyone.